Hello, everybody. Welcome. We're going to start off with pictures of Jamaica in a few minutes. We got to play a song. I'll put a link in the description for you. JFK Got in the Way. It's not the name of the song. That's what I calls it. 1957 is the name of the song. You can link over into the description. I'll be right back after the song.
Fukushima was fine. JFK got in the way. Nuclear industry can't delay. No term could steer, no rule could stall. It rolled ahead, it rolled through all. 1957 cleared the way. JFK got in the way.
We have to remember 15 years ago she was caught in a sting operation.
Oops. Hopefully YouTube doesn't dig me for that one. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Is the nuclear power industry's radioactive fallout a billion-year curse on humanity and the 8 million species? Why, hell yeah, it is. We're going to start off with pictures of Jamaica in a minute. Just adjust that equalizer a little bit. Here we go. So there's places where it stripped the topsoil and dropped all the trees, of course. But it actually stripped the grass and the topsoil from the ground many places. Like the trees were just, there's trees left standing, pieces of them, but you can see ones alongside of it are just stripped. And you're going to see a lot of that. You keep hearing the narrative of 185 miles per hour. And you don't hear about gusts. So when you get 185 mile per hour winds, the gusts are going to be at the very extremes, maybe 250 miles per hour. I'm just going to give you that example before we jump into it. And these are what we call nuclear storms, nuclear supercell hurricanes, supercell typhoons, supercell cyclones. Post-Fukushima is the new norm. And these, I can assure you, are not normal. Just bear with me. There we go. So we heard a lot about, we got a lot of pictures to get through. We're going to do that first. But I just want to I just need to articulate why we're talking about this story, because we cover nuclear. And nuclear has a lot of strange facets. Here we go. Okay, so let's walk backwards for a second. So this is radioactive fallout based on 23 days from the French government of cesium-137 covering the entire planet. We're talking about 1 million to 10 million atoms per cubic meter of air of cesium-137. Cesium-137 pulses energy 600 feet every second for 300 years. And put that into context, gas, oil, and coal emissions, carbon doesn't pulse energy at all. Cesium-137, for instance, pulses at 600 feet every second for millions of years. So carbon releases from coal plants, gas plants, oil plants don't produce plumes like this. You won't see models of radioactive or carbon fallout, because wherever it lands, there's more birds and insects and plants and trees, etc., etc., etc. More puppies, more fruit trees and everything else, right? Where this lands to, it kills the bacteria, the fungus, the biota in the ground. And that's the stuff, by the way, that soaks up the water, and that helps break down the foliage and the litter and the meadows and the forest and that. It's, the cycle of life, right? You're talking about millions of microscopic creatures. And you're talking about bacteria and fungus, which makes it all work, and that soaks up the water, retains the water. And that perspires during droughts. And so in the morning, you'll see what you call morning dew. And that rejuvenates plants and trees and insects and animals during droughts because you have that morning dew. And bacteria will kill all of it, or radioactive fallout will kill all of that. And so now the ground won't soak up water anymore. And the foliage in the litter, in the fields and the forests and the meadows, doesn't break down. And so they become tinder dry because you don't have the bacteria, the fungus, the biota, the water that is the cycle of life for recycling plants and animals and insects and everything else. So what we expected after Fukushima was this effect, because we had this kind of documentation. We expect that worldwide we're going to see flash floods that we've never seen pre-Fukushima. We expected to see supercell cyclones, supercell hurricanes, supercell typhoons. But we didn't expect to see winds blowing so strong that nobody on the planet has building codes to shelter from it. In other words, no community's infrastructure is built to withstand these types of winds we're seeing. And of course, Jamaica, being on the lower end of that scale, has even less. Okay. So it was really interesting because we were watching that storm closely, and 185 miles per hour. The house you live in, the apartment, the buildings, the mansions, whatever, you don't have a building code to protect you from 185 mile per hour wind. These are sustained winds. So you can expect gusts to be at least 30% in a typical weather pattern, but these are not what we call typical weather patterns. These are much stronger. So when you're talking about 185 mile per hour, even being inside your car is not safe, because everything that wind comes across, like rocks and branches and obstacles, even birds and humans become projectiles in these types of winds. And you want to keep that in mind as we talk about this. Now, what was missing from this equation here is I gathered up these headlines that day, Category 5 coming to Jamaica, and you see how 185 mile per hour winds was prominence. It got incredible prominence. But then the alarm should have been, we expected to gust in excess of 250 miles per hour. So 250 miles per hour means you need to be underground. If you could be, right? That would be the preferred shelter, like a bomb shelter underground. From the old-fashioned 50s and 60s, go back and watch nuclear bomb shelters. And that's what you should be building, because this is happening everywhere, these types of winds. And that's what you need to survive when that shows up in your environment. Because you can store a lot of your precious heirloom seeds, water, and your expensive material down in your bomb shelter when these storms are coming through, and still have them after the storm. Because if you leave them upstairs or in your building and you're in the bomb shelter, they're probably going to get blown away. With gusts surpassing 200 miles per hour, and they don't even give it that prominence, you see 200. And so this is contempt, because this is the biggest storm in history. And 185 miles per hour is not just going to gust 15 extra miles per hour. I don't need to explain that to you, how big of a discrepancy we're actually talking about. But we're talking about at least 65 miles per hour extra minimum. And we could consider gust up to 300 miles per hour up the valleys and 400 kilometers per hour wind gust. So nobody on the planet has building infrastructure that is code that is built to withstand those types of wind gusts, for instance. We all agree with that? So when I seen all these headlines, I had kind of a bit of an epiphany. And the media, as before it came ashore, as it was coming ashore, the media, I was going through short video clips on YouTube before I went live that night, and they were talking about bits of roofs were being torn off. Now, 185 mile per hour, and I've never heard that connotation, bits of roof being torn off in a storm. It's usually shingles and unsecured, like sheds and stuff like that would lose the upper part of the buildings, right? We'd never heard the word bits of roof were not torn off, but blown off. And I had heard 3, 4, 5 YouTube videos where I started to realize that was a pattern I was hearing. But I was also not hearing the word gust at all, ever. And it was there. Eventually, you would see it once, maybe twice, in 100 of these screen captures. 185 mile per hour winds, 185. Well, I mean, it should be speculation. 230 even. Even I can understand low balling at that low. But I mean, we don't have infrastructure that can withstand those kinds of wind. And they're not getting a lot of aid that was promised to them from the world. There is aid getting in there, but it's not very much. These are post-Fukushima storms. These are not storms we've seen pre-Fukushima. So even if you don't agree with me, you should give me the benefit of a doubt. First off, because I've been covering this and doing research expeditions on the Pacific Ocean for 6 years straight, 4 to 5 months a year on the ocean. And I've covered almost every headline in 14 years. And not just Fukushima, but all kinds of, also, not everyone, but all kinds of headlines of all the nuclear. There's 9,500 nuclear industries, so you can't cover everything. And we come close to it. To have 200 mile per hour winds, 185 mile per hour winds, 185 miles per hour winds with 100, and always the exact same connotations, framed the same way. Except, for the most part, that's the prominence, that stands out every time. I highlighted it, but if I didn't highlight it, that would have stood out for you on its own, right? Okay, so that was just some of the headlines that I gathered up before the night that it was coming ashore in Jamaica. And we went through a lot of videos, and we couldn't find evidence of 185 miles per hour at all. In fact, I don't think we found evidence. I don't know, maybe, after you might have found some evidence, but it's even up to now, you're barely finding the evidence. But we have, tonight we have found some evidence. We have a lot of testimony coming out of there, where they talk about the land is stripped of soil and the trees are stripped, or just completely, not only stripped, but torn out of the ground. So I'm just going to run through, and we're talking about the western end of the island, Santa Cruz, and I have maps of some of the areas that we're going to be looking at. And I ordered in, I'll just talk about, because you took down my BitChute channel a couple of days ago, to my horror, with almost 1,100 of these presentations on it. I've been censored pretty viciously. My other YouTube channel had 3,000 presentations and videos from the research expeditions. They slowly ripped down 1,500 of them. 300 was with a court order, and they had other ways of doing it. And then they just took down my site when I was out researching spiders that were missing in the forest. And so this is the only site I got left. So there's a lot of stress, right? I'm under a lot of stress. So today I ordered in a small sauna. I'm going to do a sauna every day. And these are just the cheap ones, right? I ordered in red light therapy and I didn't cheap out on that. I actually went overboard and got the proper one, the real nice one. I'm planning on doing 10 to 12 minutes of that every day. And the red light is the light you get in the morning sun. As the sun comes up over the mountain, right, there's that over the horizon, there's this red light. And as humans, we were, that activates your pineal gland, helps, but it also is really good for your body, your muscles, your skin. In fact, it's vital. That was a normal part of your health, is the red light therapy. And I ordered in what's known as a grounding mat. And that connects to the ground outdoors. And so instead of going outdoors, and we got frost tonight, so I plan on doing that each day to lift my spirit up, and so that I can maintain these shows and do the work every day. Because you have to do a lot of work every day to produce these shows, and these shows are very difficult, very heartbreaking to tell, you know, because you work at it all day, and it's just, you wallow in this excrement of the nuclear industry all day, and then you got to sit there that night and try to be a little bit upbeat and tell the story. And I realize I'm suffering from this continuous psychological abuse and post-traumatic stress disorder from the research expeditions. Is real. That's real. What I went through was just really something. I have never gotten over it. And this is therapy for me by doing this each night, as 5 days a week, telling the story of Fukushima and the nuclear industry. It's therapy, and it allows me to sleep at night. Because I notice that when I don't do the shows, I can't sleep very good. But if I do a really good job on the shows, I sleep pretty darn good. You know, I'm still Now, I wake up every morning for the last 30-plus days. Since the United States government shut down, they stopped chemtrailing our skies here. And so we get sunshine almost every day. There's just a couple of days where, even with cloudy days, you still got sun in the background, and it's actual sun, is not chemtrails. So it looks like a symmetrical cloud. I'm sure that'll start up again. But, you know, we got videos of the United States EPA coming out and saying that they're tired of the chemtrails and that they're going to release the documentation so everybody has it after that administration gone. We will still have the documentation of who's chemtrailing the skies across North America and elsewhere. And because it's wrong. And they're spraying chemicals on our food, on our water supplies, on our communities, on our children, and our friends and our families. And they're destroying us by doing that to us. They're blocking out the sun, and they're putting chemicals. Many different types of chemicals have been identified that way. And so I've been taking advantage each morning. I get up really early and catch that red light as the sun's coming up each morning for the last 30-plus days. And I must admit, I'm loving it. And so that's why I have the big 280 light, red light therapy. It's really good for your whole body. And let's get after this here now. We got a lot to get through. So I definitely went out on a limb today, but I know it's for the better. I know what I'm doing is the right thing. I know it'll help me be able to do these shows more proficiently. So up to now, we haven't seen any kind of 185 mile per hour wind documentation. We haven't seen the gust above that kind of documentation, the damage from it, right? We will, however, see some of that tonight. And not everywhere got hit by these enormous winds that I'm going to show you, but what you're going to see is you know, when I get to it, I'll explain it to you how the people were talking about the topsoil is missing, the trees were ripped to pieces, everything was stripped off the land, and they've never even heard tell of something like that before. Those pictures, you can almost assume, were at least close to 200 miles per hour. But, you know, we're still picking, and we figured this is what would take place. We would slowly start picking through, because when you got 2 million people, 3 million people, lots of them had cameras. And so eventually, this stuff is going to show up somewhere, whether it's YouTube or not, but it's going to show up somewhere. It was really interesting that the media, now Canada, the headline for the show tonight was Ontario, Canada, which is several million people, metropolitan Toronto, just seen, well, in a few days we'll see their power bills increase by 30% because the Canadian government is going to build very, very expensive nuclear, and we'll get to that story. It's a significant thing, see, because nuclear is supposed to be cheap and everything else, right? And it's not. So when I was going through these pictures, remember, these pictures were just me. I was gathering documentation, so I'm snapping pictures, screen captures of the documentation because I don't know what else I'm going to find, or I don't know if this is going to be the best I find, or, excuse me. But I'm pretty good at it, so we got some good stuff here. And so some stuff is going to be by the ocean, but some stuff clearly is up on the hills. This is clearly up on the hills away from the ocean. Now there was huge water coming down the mountains. The mountains, top of the mountains, there's typically a lot of moisture anyway. And so there could have been up to 3 feet of rain in just a short while. That created flash floods. But the reason the flash floods were so devastating is because the earth is not soaking up water anymore post-Fukushima. For a lot of the planet, the forests are not soaking up the water. Now, when you're looking at these trees, that hill there in the background, you know that's higher than, even if this was, and this is not the storm surge, what you're looking at right there. And a lot of the mud in the streets, well, it looks like storm surge is actually flash floods. Remember, I'm just trying to gather up. These are trees that they cut apart to open up the highway a little bit. This was a Fox reporter in the vehicle where the camera is to. And there's like they're in a war zone. He's making it extremely dramatic. These are bamboo. There's a lot of bamboo in these tropical countries. And you can imagine bamboo doesn't have much resistance to these kinds of weather. This is flash flooding water left over. So as we start to go through these pictures, hopefully I'll cover the details that I wanted to cover. And this is wind damage. So when you see brick buildings taken apart by wind, think about the fact that each of the pieces are turned into projectiles at these enormous speeds. This is Black River. Now, Black River is on the ocean. So some of this stuff, because would be storm surge area. Clearly, this is too high to be storm surge. So the videos are all over the place, and I was just trying to gather up what I could, and then I decided I was going to tell that story tonight. It's not in your description, but clearly we're above sea level right here. So this is wind damage. And the wind damage, what we're looking at, as far as I can tell, is extreme. The topsoil is gone for the most part, and the trees are completely torn apart. The limbs of the trees are torn. As you can see over the corner is a good example, where the branches are all snapped off the trees, and the top of the trees are all snapped off it. This is a marker of extreme winds. But I haven't really been able to get through the good stuff. I haven't found it yet. Over the next week or two, I'll find what I'm looking for, and I'll tell that story. Hopefully, I'll do it more justice, because that story needs to be told. This most likely was storm surge. which we know was 13, 14, 15 feet. This, however, is flash floods coming down, but you can still see the trees are stripped. And of course, a lot of this footage is YouTube footage. It's not very good quality, and I was kind of gathering it up. Normally I would pick through it. Tonight I'm just going to show you everything I got, which I think is around 400 of these pictures. This is storm surge that created. So what I'm looking for damage from. Well, you know the expression of sandblasting, right? Sandblasting is where you use sand to peel off, to clean paint or rust off metal maybe, or an automobile or something like that, right? We're looking for that kind of damage on infrastructure where dirt that was stripped from the topsoil that was stripped, when it's hitting buildings, would have done certain types of damages. Now, I don't remember finding exactly that. I didn't have enough time punched in. Because normally you got to spend 7, 8, 9, 10 hours, and then the good stuff you'll put it in a separate folder where you say, okay, well this is. You can see that tree up there. All the branches are broken off the tops of it. Everything is stripped off the trees except for the small branches, which is the typical survival. Is the small thin branches. They're very flexible. They're very young. And they got if the tree doesn't tear apart that section, those small branches usually stick around. But you can see the trees, all the trees up here were stripped out, completely stripped out. And you can see this, again, is you're above sea level. This is flash flood for water and rain, and then wind damage. So it's pretty significant damage. And again, like I'm just gathering up evidence, and tonight you're just getting everything. Whatever I got, I'm going to show you every single picture. And I was trying, again, I'm trying to quantify. Now, this is storm surge. This is in Black River, Westmoreland, I'm sorry. And so this, remember, this jumps all over the place sometimes, so I'll show you something. You can see the ocean, but a few pictures later, you're actually on the mountains again. And that's because I didn't have time before I went live to sort things out. And I just decided to come out and start to show off about an hour ago. And I was grabbing this right up to within the last half an hour before I went live tonight. And I was just trying to understand. And also, maybe some of you folks will be out there looking now, and you might find more evidence, for instance, right? So I'm looking at the trees in particular, but I'm also looking for projectiles. I'm looking for objects stuck in the buildings, which is typical of very high winds. And I'm looking for damage like that right there. That's incredible damage. That's up high. You're up on the hills. And I'm looking for the trees in the background. And Fukushima is notorious. And I'm looking for everything turned into like a wood chipper came through, so to speak. That's emblematic of very high winds. And we're looking for asymmetrics of roofs torn off. Where, you know, most of the roofs are torn off. So you got that one back here, the church, and then you got 1, 2, 3, 4 visible there, 5 roofs almost in a row torn off, 6, and you got 1, 2, 3 over there, 4 up there, 5 up here. Some of these houses were just ripped right off the foundation, 6, 7. So the house doesn't even exist anymore. And you're looking for the trees missing, you're looking for debris spread over a very large area. This clearly is not at sea level, you're above sea level. And so the mud on the roads is from the flash floods, and there is evidence of landslides, which we expected to see because of the amount of rain and because of the fact that the earth is so dry, this stuff was easy to move because it's so dry, right? It's not packed down. It's very dusty when the rain finally showed up. And again, all the trees are stripped. Again, I don't know what the winds were here. I couldn't tell you. This is Lokovia. I got a map of that. This is about 12 miles inland. So it's far from the ocean. I'm assuming there's no way the storm surge made it here. And this is all wind damage we're looking at. We couldn't find any damage, any of the winds in the first 24 hours or so. It was really surprising. We're like, how can you have 3 million people? And the media was very bizarre connotations in their reports on the storm in the first couple of days that we were paying attention. So again, when you see Lokovia, you're talking about 12 miles inland. So there's no storm surge making it there to that place. But you can see the damage is just ripped apart and tore the foundations apart. This is flash floods, and I would imagine landslides. And you can see the trees stripped and ripped right out of the ground up there. And so I'm looking forward to taking a sauna every day. I'm looking forward to the red light therapy every day. I'm looking forward to be grounded each day. And I'm looking forward to the other stuff that I'm going to do to enhance that. I got to get serious. I'm not getting younger, and so look at this incredible damage from the flash floods and from the winds. I mean, that tree up there ripped right out of the ground, and there's no branch, no leaves whatsoever left on it. That's pretty insane. The mud is from the flash floods, and Lokovia, that's where we're talking about right now, is right here. So you're a long way away from the ocean. And just let me, I should have the scale. You can see the scale where right behind my neck there is a 5 mile scale. So you're 10, 12 miles inland, right? And this is not ground zero. It's not, I guess it might be where the eye of the storm came ashore. Now you can see all the trees are blown level on both sides of the roads, for instance, and torn out of the ground. And up close, it gives you more context of how big these trees actually are. And they're using machetes to clear the roads. And then in the background, you can see everything is stripped. There's another church, I do believe. I could have been the same one we looked at earlier. You can see the landslide coming down the mountain. But the direction of the trees are laying is really interesting. More landslides. And this is from the flash floods. Just wow, damage. The damage is next level. Again, we've barely covered anything. We've barely covered anything. Over the next number of days now, I'll start excuse me. Santa Cruz, which is 15, 20 miles inland. So this is all wind damage and flash floods when you see the mud, stuff like that. Flash floods. And, we will eventually get footage where we can quantify some of our assertions, I'm guessing, more so than now. Right now, these are enormous winds. The communication poles were stripped, telephone poles and that, or the cell phone towers, and this is Santa Cruz, which is around 15 miles inland. So this is clearly wind and storm or flash floods. And the testimony from the people is symmetrical. They've never seen anything like it. Their grandparents had never mentioned any kind of storms like this. And yet, in the 174 years of record keeping, they've never seen this. The storm maintained its energy of 165 mile per hour winds for the first day coming before it came ashore. Or second day before it came ashore. The day before it came ashore, for about 16 hours, it maintained 175 miles per hour wind. And then the last 7 or 8 hours before it finally touched down, it was at sustaining again. All of these are sustained winds at 185 mile per hour. These are the reports. At that time, we had no evidence, and the media was never acknowledging that the winds would gust. So this was a clear cover-up. Now, there's 4.5 million tourists go to Jamaica each year. There's a lot of American interest down there. A lot of wealthy industries have influences down there, and that could have been one of the reasons why that they throttled the documentation. And even what I'm showing you tonight, it was just, I don't know what the winds were. I can't tell you. I can tell you they were extraordinary. I can show you the evidence, hopefully, of some of that, unfortunately. But I did listen to the testimony of 7 or 8 people, including policemen that were underground in some of these places. And some of the policemen were terrified, like they lost their minds. They had a nervous breakdown, and the other police officers had to take charge because some of the officers were terrified. They were no longer in any capacity to be useful. They had shelled up. And I'm pretty sure if the winds strike us at these speeds, we'll do the same thing. So enormous winds, holy smokes, crazy stuff. And of course this is up, Santa Cruz is about 15 miles inland or more. So these are wind and flash floods. When you see the mud, you're thinking flash floods. Not everything we're seeing was completely annihilated, but you can see severe damage everywhere. I've only seen a small section, just Black River, Santa Cruz, and 2 other places in that neck of the woods. Because I had like an epiphany about an hour before I went live, and so I'll go out and see if I can gather up a little something. You never know. And so I started taking screen captures, and I was like, well, we're finally getting footage, but any footage from the mainstream media is severely censored. It's not going to be from ground zero of the major, the center of the storm where you would have had the most winds on the outer walls and stuff like that. We haven't seen that yet. And so it could take a week or more and I'll have a folder now where I'll start gathering this up now that we know the footage is starting to get available, and see what we can put together for next week. the sun comes up each morning, there's that 45 minute window of a red spectrum light that is really healthy for you. It's really healthy for your skin. It's really healthy for your whole body. Your whole body responds to it. There's an actual physical reaction in your body that is very beneficial. And last week I've been noticing a big difference. You can see these buildings being torn apart sometimes, right? These houses, and you see it again here, right, where all the houses, you can see the trees in the background are stripped. And the reports of people were talking about the topsoil was stripped, the grass was stripped just right down to the topsoil. The trees were completely limbed out or completely blown away, missing, absolutely missing. And what we're seeing is what was left. A lot of it, there's a lot more trees there, but they were blown away. And no doubt they were turned into projectiles. This is flash flood and probably landslides too that created that kind of material. I don't know 100%. I'm assuming that's flash floods coming down the mountain. This is where it finally ended up. And of course, you can see these big boulders in the middle of the roads, or that's middle actually. Big boulders everywhere. So this is Santa Cruz, 50 miles inland. Now we talked about, and you can see this building completely flattened. We were talking about this originally the day it was coming ashore, what these types of winds we would expect to see. Like every building with significant damage and certain wherever you had the mass winds coming ashore. This is not ground zero per se, but it's still ground zero, obviously. And I was just trying to gather up this information. So again, we're back to Lacovia, which is about 12 miles inland. Look at this house right here. Again, you can see evidence of the flash floods. It was enormous, unprecedented amount of wind and rain, rather. So the combination makes it pretty spectacular. I don't have the close-up shots yet because we're looking for sandblasting. They'll indicate we're looking for projectiles that were embedded in buildings. We're looking for damage from the projectiles in the buildings. You can see all the trees are stripped in the top part of the page, for instance. You're 12 miles from the coastline. So a lot of places you're going to be able to quantify certain winds, right? It doesn't seem to be a single tree that wasn't damaged. And look at these buildings. These buildings are completely, all the interior is blown out of these buildings. Now we know a few years back in St. Kitts, don't quote me, I believe it was St. Kitts, which is in the same neck of the woods. They had got hit with 165 mile per hour sustained winds and gusting to who knows what. And there was a new tourist skyscraper, I believe it's 20-something story building, 18-story building rather, and it blew all the furniture, all the couches, the TV sets out of the skyscraper, all of it, all the windows, and they were interviewing people, and I got it there. We collected it, we covered it when it happened. I do have footage there on one of the hard drives of extraordinary wind. That was 4 years ago, 5 years ago or something. We've covered a lot of this post-Fukushima, like an absurd amount. Yeah, again, I don't know what the wind speeds would have been here. I have no concept of it. If this got hit by 185, this is not ground zero. It is ground zero in the context of it was severe damage, but it's not considered the worst part of the country that got hit. And because the media was so vague, the storm was allegedly continuously moving before it came ashore westerly. I still don't even know exactly where the most damage was created. But this is a very important story, so I decided we should cover what we got tonight to try to, because we couldn't find any evidence on the first 2 days of damage. Like, there was, all the videos were basically the same, and there was the first day, mostly what we found was AI videos, which was bizarre. And so there was a lot of evidence suggesting they were suppressing videos of the storm itself. The media certainly, as I showed at the beginning of it, kept regurgitating 185 mile per hour wind, but wouldn't acknowledge that wind's gust. And so these are supercell storms post-Fukushima that we weren't seeing pre-Fukushima. This is the biggest storm they've ever seen. It's post-Fukushima. This lady was talking about winds that were so terrifying, they didn't think for a second they were going to survive it. And you can see in the background, all the trees are stripped. And so this is a cement cuddy, that's a bathroom piano. He had a sheet metal up against that, and he was hanging onto that, sitting in there because of the winds were so terrifying. He felt that he would get blown away. In fact, she was talking about people being blown away. And that's some stuff we're expecting. But the media was very, very, very careful not to release any documentation, not even suggest that the winds could gust. This is a storm surge area and wind, of course. You can see the roofs are peeled. That's the wind. And you can see this debris, that's the storm surge. But then the footage will immediately shift to higher terrain far away from it. This was some of the live footage. And remember, I'm watching these videos, so I'm just grabbing everything that tells the story. And you can see the roof getting peeled off. And this was the hospital in Black River, I think it is. And that was the storm surge coming ashore. Again, there was a cover-up. Now, we don't know. I still haven't seen any evidence of the super high winds, and I certainly haven't seen evidence of the super high gust. You can see the trees on the road here. A lot of the land is stripped according to some of the reporters that were there, and the locals and the police. Now, these were ambulances. They were stuck. They couldn't get to the communities. And look at these trees, had the strippedness of that. And so eventually we're going to find ground zero. Eventually we're going to have evidence of whatever the winds might have been. We're not seeing any salacious headlines or any connotations of it. And so we'll probably never know the true numbers. Right? They controlled the numbers right from the beginning. And all the media came out with the 185. And it's hard to comprehend how they never speculated on gust. Because we've seen them traditionally several years back, they always speculated on gusts. We expect to see gusts of 400 kilometers per hour, close to 250 to 300 miles per hour even, in the certain valleys and mountains, areas that are known to accelerate wind. When you're looking at these trees, they're very sturdy trees. They're very old trees. And you can see all the trees on the hill in the background. You're at higher altitude. And everything is stripped, torn apart. And this is what you expect to see, the enormous winds. I wouldn't be surprised if you've seen gusts here of 150 mile per hour winds at all. Right? This is what you would expect to see. This was once a very lush forest, all of that back there. It's once a beautiful little spot. Now everything is stripped and snapped off. You can see all the white tips to the trees, say, for instance, right there. They're very prominent, how they stand out. We're looking at pictures of Jamaica from Hurricane Melissa / Malicious. I'm not too far away from the end of these pictures. These are at a higher altitude, so we're not talking storm surge up here, but if you do see connotations of that, it'll be the flash floods. And I don't know about anybody else finding evidence. I haven't found evidence of the enormous winds yet. I couldn't, I'm going to guess. Everything I'm seeing is I'm guessing. Right, I don't have any hard evidence. You can see all the trees are snapped off. But over the next week, my folder will get bigger and bigger. I'll dedicate an amount of time each day to scouring for this documentation. And I'm actually pretty good at that stuff. You can see all the windows are blown out, the roofs are torn off the house, the roof is torn off the house here. I'm looking for big buildings with the windows ripped. I'm looking for 6, 7, 8-story buildings this week. I'll be looking for that are stripped. The furniture is missing, for instance. That'll be an indication that we got into over 200 mile per hour winds. They don't have any infrastructure for 100 mile per hour winds. You can see the damage to it doesn't look as good as it did earlier. But you can see all the white tips on the trees in the background. That's the significant wind damage. This is pretty telling, all these trees laying in the same direction. So this must have been, this is up in the mountains. It must have been an enormous, Black River, but it's up higher. This must have been enormous winds. And your media, these are not very nice people. These are very annoying people, actually. And they're headed into ground zero. They have they have a security guards with them. They have a security escorts in front of them, behind them. And they're driving like maniacs, like literally the opposite of what you would expect for responsible people. Significant damage. It's very difficult to get any footage because they're driving so fast. Excuse me. They're also reporting all the topsoil and grass and everything is stripped in many areas. And these are not very high quality because they're actually moving very fast. I mean, these guys are pedal to the metal. They can barely keep up with each other. They're driving so fast. Again, this is evidence of extraordinary winds on these mountains here. All the trees are stripped. This was a very lush area. There have been a lot of very green. You wouldn't have seen the houses in the background because of the trees. But we haven't got no zooming in. We got no details. We don't know what we're looking at. We don't know exactly where this is. But it is evidence of extreme winds. And a lot of the winds will funnel up these little valleys and they'll pick up even more speeds. And that will translate down to the lower areas. It will be because it's sucking air up through. So once that momentum gets going, it's like a vacuum at the top of the hill, or all the way up to the top of the hill. This is the last set of pictures here we're looking at. Again, we don't we don't know very much about the numbers. These are very high numbers, though, very damaged. Certainly well over 100 mile per hour winds damage. This is flash flood damage, I believe you're looking at right here, if I remember correctly. Okay, so we made it through those pictures. And so this was just a precursor to what I'll gather up now, because I'll start looking. I'll have a folder each day. I'll start gathering up more evidence, and then next week we'll probably end up doing a show, or maybe even two, on our findings. And I'm pretty sure it's going to be pretty insane. This is the Fukushima effect. Post-Fukushima, this is the norm to see these types of storms. I had a very dry throat tonight. Okay, I didn't delete last night's show, so let me get rid of that nightmare. Because that takes up a lot of my real estate on my session here. And we'll get after the rest of tonight's show. What am I looking at? Bear with me. Oh, that's a different story. Let's keep going here. We're up to here. Okay. So Fukushima radioactive fallout had another adverse effect where we're seeing emaciated whales worldwide of every species. That was a humpback whale. This is a bride's whale to your left and a bride's whale to your right. This was about 9 days ago. This was 2 years ago. That's an emaciated bride's whale over there. I don't even know how you describe this. This is beyond emaciation. This animal was in India. This was alive when it came ashore 8 days ago. Now we're seeing that symmetrical emaciated of every species. And my playlist, you'll see the die-off videos. I'm going to start up another channel on BitChute. I don't know where else to put the... Because, I record these videos because YouTube's going to mess with my video before the next 12 hours is up. It's going to edit something out of my videos. It's been doing that to every video on this site. We've documented it. We've even done comparisons of the original video versus the edited video, and showed up to 4 minutes hacked out of my videos. And particularly when I'm talking about the International Atomic Energy Agency. And you can find that stuff in my video section, where you're in the live section if you're watching this. Right, go to my homepage and go over to video section. I'll just bring it up for you, maybe. So this is so right now you're in the live section. If you go to video section, you'll also see some pretty crazy stuff. Operation Long Jump is the Japanese government intelligence agencies has an operation against me to destroy me. It's called Operation Long Jump. It looks like they're very successful at it too. They've been at it a very long time. That's just one of those incidences where they called into the show and bragged about Operation Long Jump and some of their assets they were going to use against me. Yoshida Mashada from the Chicago division of the TEPCO, or Tokyo Bureau, the Japanese government itself. Here's what IAEA edited out of my Fukushima 14th, one of my anniversary videos. I actually done 14 videos for the 14th anniversary of different facets. Fukushima Unit 4 had 8 reactor cores in the fuel pool. This was on the 16th of March. This is Frank von Hippel, professor. Here's another one of Japan's TEPCO's lab rat, Calm Down Charlie, threatens me with the terrorist Stinkfoot, Philip Mason. We are in the live section. Now, if you come over to my playlist, there's very important stuff there for you. I have a lot of playlists to help you. The meltdown tanks, so you can understand how the tanks work. My picks to get you up to speed. 736 Fukushima pictures. There's 2 videos like that. The other one are the 736 mystery pictures from this year. I'm the only person who ever covered those pictures. The Canadian CANDO tritium releases are frightening. Canadian Expo. Nuclear dumping in the Pacific Ocean, not counting the world. Out of Harvard University, MIT University, Stanford University, those 3 videos, incredibly telling. And mass species die off of whales. So if you click the full playlist, for instance, and the anti-nuclear music is incredible. That's incredible stuff right there for if you're in anti-nuclear music. I got you covered right there. So this is die-offs. If you pick out any of these videos, and they are recent die-off videos, and there's a lot of them. If you pick out any of them, you'll get up to speed on the die-offs from the radioactive fallout. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you don't know this stuff, you need to know it. That's the most recent one, Fukushima Horror Show. Well, I don't think that one should be there. Maybe I'm wrong. I'll have to check that later. And we got some music in there accidentally, which is fine. And whales, birds, insects, that's what you're looking for. Whales, birds, insects, radioactive shrimp is incredible. All of these videos are incredible documentation of the species die-off. And James Lucid is your place for music. That man he's produced more music than the entire planet combined in anti-nuclear music. And I'm talking, he's got some of the best stuff you can imagine. I was taken earlier today, right? He's got all these crazy, he got different genres, but he's got my personal favorites. I'm going to do a show eventually on it. And if you check under his video, a lot of his videos, he's linking to the story that motivated him to create the songs. That was the catalyst for him to create the songs. And that's important for you to appreciate the song itself. Because a lot of the songs, he's trying to tell a story in the form of a sonnet. It's like a poem, but it's in a song, right? Yeah, I'm a little dry there tonight. We'll get through some of this. See how we do as we're going through it. This was a few days ago. I think this was Thursday night or something. I started this folder. These were the top pictures of the day. Yeah, of that day. So one of them was, I think that's an elk. This was, you kind of seen pictures like that tonight earlier. This was Jamaica. This is more pictures of Jamaica. I wasn't even sure what I was looking at originally. Trump and Xi Jinping, China's Communist Party president. It just means they got one party. They're a single party country, which is, I don't know. With the corruption we see with the multiple parties, I don't know if there's any difference. This, don't even ask me. I was grabbing these pictures because they looked interesting. And NASA's one step closer to launching a quiet supersonic jet. NASA's pretty disgusting, eh? But the idea of this quieter jet is because they're not allowed to fly the supersonic jets over certain land masses and communities because of the noise they make, right? And the damage that noise can produce, the supersonic. So they're hoping to get their supersonic jets because they can make it to places in half the time if they can fly across the country, but they can't because of the certain restrictions anyway. Terrible people. The first decontaminated steel from Chernobyl was released for reuse. These people are insane, but why do it? You don't have to do it. Do you got any idea how much energy and effort and time, monetary, goes into mitigating it to the point where it's never going to be safe? And then in order to produce, to grind all the radioactive material off it, they have to release that into the environment. So it's very toxic release into the environment. From the Chernobyl nuclear power plant for reuse elsewhere in the country, but why? Ukraine doesn't even have a country anymore. They have just a slaughterhouse where over 1 million people were chased down by drones and blown up. 1 million people watched the drone coming, knew that this thing would chase him around till he ran out of energy, and then it would just hover over him, and then they would give up literally, and the drone would go in mercilessly, control remotely, and blow up the so-called conscripted soldiers. Most of these people have no trainings. They're jacked off the streets, put it in a uniform and sent out there. And the drones are made by Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of YouTube, Google. He makes $400,000 or $1 million a month for $400 each. Their job is they're suicide drones, right? How can he ever look at it? Well, I mean, he's worth $48 billion or something, right? But how can you ever look anybody in the eye? How can he look himself in the mirror knowing that what he's producing is just meant to blow up innocent people so he can be extremely wealthy? Right? It really raises the question of what did he do when he was in Google to the people that put their faith into Google. Carbon steel. 20 tons of carbon steel. Carbon steel. Like the effort that goes into mitigating the radiation from this material is extraordinary. There's no reason to do it. Take a big hole, bury it, and forget about it. It's unconscionable that you've done it. It shows the contempt of this industry forever and ever. Before being cleared for release, the material was fragmented, decontaminated. You can't decontaminate anything from radiation without making a mess somewhere else of radiation. And then thoroughly checked at the free release facility, the FRM03, using gamma spectrometer monitoring. Well, what about alphas? What about betas? What about neutrons? You're only looking for gamma. Then you're not doing the job, are you? Disgusting, as if Chernobyl didn't do enough damage already to put that stuff back into the environment. And the only reason they're doing that is so the industry can say we don't have that much waste at Chernobyl. When the whole planet was covered with Chernobyl fallout, the whole planet is nuclear waste because of Chernobyl. Environmentally, it's the worst thing you could do. It's the opposite of stewardship. It reduced the amount of radioactive waste. Well, no, you just took the waste and put it somewhere else. You didn't reduce it, you arrogant subhuman species. Economically allows additional funds to be directed to decommissioning activity. Additional funds, yeah. You spent a fortune to move your radiation somewhere else and to people that don't know the difference. And you only check for gamma. It helps ease the burden on the state budget of Ukraine. No, you increase the state budget, like Doug Ford just done. Most importantly, it demonstrated the reliability and effectiveness of Ukraine's radiation monitoring system. It done no such thing. And it's absurd to even suggest it did. Significant amounts of radioactive material are generated, some of which after appropriate treatment, sorting, fragmentation, decontamination, and subsequent radiation survey are subject to release for regulatory control. Why would you have that many that whole process is incredibly resource intensive and expensive for a lousy 20 tons of carbon steel. They really are the worst people, the nuclear industry. They just don't seem to have any redeeming qualities whatsoever. Well, the biggest killer of insects on this planet has been the nuclear industry for 80 years of emissions. There's 1,000 fuel pools worldwide that creates a plume like that every month. For the last 80 years, we've been dumping it. Nuclear meltdowns have been covered up. Emissions. There's 1,000 fuel pools hemorrhaging radiation all day into the environment that does this every day. But this was Japan's, the French government's, shown a spike of 10 million atoms of cesium-137. This devastated the insect population. The biggest killer of species on the planet is the nuclear industry for 80 years. While at the same time returning a significant amount of valuable material to the national economy for further use for the public good. There is no public good to be putting anthropogenic man-made contaminated material into the environment. So the way they framed this whole narrative was desperation to justify polluting the environment and justify tricking people into taking radioactive material. It's just, we see these connotations all the time with the unconditional protection of the population and the environment. You literally got to be the kookiest weirdo on the planet to even suggest that nuclear has that attribute. None of them are doing it because they're complacent. They're doing it because they're just evil people. This is Fukushima radioactive fallout, by the way. This is based on 20 days of neptunium-239. Neptunium-239 decays to plutonium-239 in 2.5 days. What's known as a half-life. There's 10 half-lives. There's 10 half-lives. There's 10 half-lives. So 25 days later, all of the plume you're looking at, that's a 20-day plume. After 25 days, all that plume is plutonium-239. A big story, that's the headline today. Ontario electricity supply costs jumped 29% as the nuclear spending rises. 29%. So Ontario has decided to build a fictional small modular reactor. The Canadian small modular reactor is actually 50 feet taller than the Fukushima massive reactors. Fukushima reactors were 190 feet. They're 150 feet wide and 190 feet tall. The Canadian reactors are 240 feet tall. 240 feet tall. There was, at the top of the buildings were around 8 reactor cores in each building and the 2 fuel pools at the top of each of the buildings. They're all gone also. Let me come back to this one. So the Canadian Ontario, which is Ontario, I'm talking about in particular tonight, electricity supply costs jumped 29% because they're spending money on nuclear, and they're doing it very slowly. Experts warned they're going to be using subsidies, which are still taxpayers' money, to hide the rising power costs, only shift the burden to the taxpayers. And they already got a $14 billion deficit because of the refitting of the reactors, the disease factors they already got. Critics say the rebate hikes will add billions more. Durnford, which is he the mayor now or the premier of Ontario or something? I can't remember. He was the mayor of Ontario, Toronto rather. Durnford is trying to disguise the fact that nuclear power is our highest cost option to keep the lights on. Instead of investing in low-cost wind and solar, notice how he never mentioned geothermal, which is your solution, obviously, not wind and solar. Wind and solar is great, but geothermal is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And you can back it up with wind and solar and storage, and not batteries, but like sand or lava rocks or stuff like that. And hydrogen, we need hydrogen. Hydrogen will power your cars, your planes, your motorcycles, your trains, your buses, your transport trucks. Instead of investing in low-cost wind and solar, the government is doubling down on expensive U.S. reactors, which are 240 feet tall. They're going to put 12 stories underground. Have you ever been in a 12-story underground reactor or a building? No. And they're calling them small modular reactors. Except they're 50 feet taller than the Fukushima's massive reactors. And no debate, no conversations are allowed. They're insane. So the electricity rates will jump 29% starting November the 1st, driven largely by the higher price of nuclear power. It found the province spent $5.8 billion in 2023 on rebates to lower bills. That ultimately comes right into the public anyway. So let's go back to 2022. When they announced they were going to go forward with nuclear, they cancelled over 700 renewable energy projects in Ontario. Ontario power emissions rise 400% after Ford cancels hundreds of renewable projects. It was a huge major wind farm and 760 renewable energy projects. There was $5 billion allocated for storage for them. $5 billion. They gave that to Bruce Power. They canceled all the renewable projects right across Ontario and gave the $5 billion for storage, which would have proved we didn't need nuclear, to the nuclear industry, which is going to use it for storage. And they don't need storage. They're nuclear. They run 24 hours a day. So it was a total mockery. Right, there was $5 billion, a little over $5 billion there for storage for 760 renewable projects. They all would have had storage, so they all could have produced power 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, wind, snow, or shine. Extremely high radiation levels in Tokyo. Here's a headline from Tokyo. 500 microsieverts an hour at a playground. You get your yearly limit in 120 minutes. Well, first off, in 3 hours, there is no yearly limit. The yearly limit they're talking about is this fictional natural stuff. Right? It's an evil industry. They conflated natural stuff with man-made stuff. Man-made, like natural stuff, potassium gets in your body uses it and replenishes it. You can't live without it. Man-made stuff gets in your body attacks it for the rest of your life with white blood cells. Your body doesn't attack natural stuff with white blood cells, just man-made. So, there's no way you can conflate it that way. It's unconscionable that they had done that. Well, they got away with it for so long. Now it's the norm, right? Neptunium-239 dispersal, I just showed you that one. UN atomic body stresses post-Japan wastewater release food safety. Food safety. The International Atomic Energy Agency, which is United Nations, has launched 3 new reports to push Japanese nuclear water release does not affect the seafood safety. Well, the food is not safe in the United States, for instance. So how could it be safe in Japan? Xenon 133 in Washington was 450,000 times above detection levels and persisted for weeks. High concentrations of hot particles of plutonium and americium was just a few of it. Now, they didn't need Helen Callendicott or Ernie Gunnarsson. They weren't the ones that found it and discovered it. They were just talking about it, and they got the prominence. And they're not very nice people. What they done to you is just unconscionable. Let me play a clip of each of them lying to you. What they done was disgusting. And hence, that is the reality of the nuclear industry. I'm going to play a clip of each of them. Got that one. And is it this one? This will work. Just got to adjust the volume for you in just 1 minute. Because let's play Ernie Gunnarsson. Now, Ernie made the racks for the fuel assemblies, which are the reactor cores for identical reactors in the United States, for 70 of them. So if he doesn't know the building fuel pools are gone, who would?
Now, the division I ran built nuclear fuel racks for boiling water reactors exactly like Fukushima.
So the division he ran built the racks for the fuel pools exactly like Fukushima. For 70 of them, actually, in the United States, 70 identical reactor fuel pools. So how could he not know the fuel pools were gone? Well, he couldn't. And he's never come out and acknowledged it.
And Unit 4 has always been my biggest concern. If you watched our website...
Well, if Unit 4 was his biggest concern, and listen to this, he should evacuate Tokyo if it goes.
On the very first week of the accident, I was saying that if Unit 4 were to catch fire...
That's Unit 4 behind me.
You'd have to evacuate Tokyo.
Do you think that that building is destroyed, or am I just being a weirdo? Helen Keller had done the same thing over and over and over in radio shows. She was actually confronted and asked, now I put these 2 pictures there, the original video is up there, but she was asked, does Reactor 4 look like that or like this? Now she's done several hundred radio interviews where she done the same thing.
Let me ask you this. You've said that if the spent fuel pool in number 4 collapses, that you would evacuate your family from Boston. Do you think we would ever know the truth of what's going on there? And the reason I ask is because we've seen coverage in the
Yeah, well, I'm frozen here.
national news media
Oh,
here in the
here we
United
go.
States, from ABC News and others, that take video cameras in, saying that they're being given exclusive access to number 4.
Let
in
me
the
play that
removal of
again.
Let me ask you this. You've said that if the spent fuel pool in number 4 collapses, that you would evacuate your family from Boston. Do you think we would ever know the truth of what's going on there? And the reason I ask is because we've seen coverage in the national news media here in the United States, from ABC News and others, that take video cameras in, saying that they're being given exclusive access to number 4 in the removal of the fuel rods, which is said to have begun. And what we see in the video being shared here in America is a pristine interior building. It doesn't look like a building in which the top blew off in a hydrogen explosion.
The Japanese are very tidy people, and they have, by robot control and by human beings, removed the debris from the top of Building 4, and it does look pristine.
No, well, actually, it doesn't. It looks like this. By robots or humans, by the way. What an evil witch, boy. And what Arnie Gunnarsson done is just unconscionable. The Degenerate Agency, also known as IAEA, launched 3 new reports to reiterate that the Japanese nuclear water release does not affect seafood. So the idea is look over here, but don't look over there. Right? Don't forget that they. Just bear with me. I've got a good way of explaining that, actually. A better way. JFK got in the way. Okay, so they picked up 30 million one-ton bags, so they want you to think about the ocean, seafood. They don't want to talk about. Now, the idea, you got to remember that whole country, when it have typhoons or rain or snow, all the country is washing radiation out into the Pacific Ocean, the entire country. They picked up 60 million, and some will say, we lowball it and say 30 million one-ton bags. In fact, they grow food right alongside the one-ton bags in the nuclear wasteland where you're not allowed to stay overnight or even go. But they're allowed to go there and farm food for sale. And we know it's for sale because they're not wearing their idiotic paper suits. Irreversible heart damage for children with 50 atoms a kilogram of cesium-137. Do you know how impossible it is to know if that's in your diets? It's not like you got to do it for the rest of your life. You just got to do it a few times. And you have irreversible heart damage. The International Atomic Energy Agency is not anybody's friend on this planet. The IAEA, the UNSCLEAR, ERPA, the IPRC, etc., etc. And these are all UN, by the way. They're all the same people in each committee. And their job is to murder us in increments over time and pretend that they're the heroes. IAEA operates independently. No, it doesn't. It's UN. And they conspired with Taiwan, with South Korea, with Japan, and with China to manipulate the entire 6 billion Asian population and deny them the ability to protect themselves from Japan's deadly radioactive food from the nuclear wasteland, which is Japan. In fact, Canada is brutal radioactive, and so is the United States. All of it. And I mean all of it. Radiation doses in the Northeast Great Lakes in the United States and Canada equal to the West Coast, which was brutal. UN system. UN has a subsidy for every facet of humanity. I mean, UN has UNICEF. Think about how evil this organization really is, if you don't appreciate it. Think about the fact that they run UNICEF. And all kids in Canada, United States, for instance, when they were young, can probably remember getting UNICEF boxes on Halloween. Go out and beg for money to give it to UN, which is going to take it and use it for nothing but evil. They're evil. They're the definition of evil. They're not like almost evil or they're going to be evil. They're insidiously evil people. And they're setting the rules and regulations for your country, and they don't have any sovereignty over anybody's country. This is the biggest mistake humanity has ever made and will regret. Radiation health specialists, children with over 11 atoms a kilogram of cesium. Well, you can't just have cesium. For every cesium atomic, there's 90 times more strontium-90, 100 times more strontium-90, 70 times more strontium-85, for instance, in the same samples. The biggest byproduct of the radioactive fuel rod is curium isotopes. And curium isotopes need lead shielding 20 times thicker than you do for plutonium. curium isotopes is the biggest byproduct of the radioactive fuel rods. Like the emissions from the fuel pools are 2 billion times more toxic than industrial poison. The fuel pools are still splitting atoms for millions of homes and businesses with no containments, and all of these sites are surrounded by farms as far as you can see. All of them. Do you think that's an accident? Do you think that's a coincidence? IAEA is responsible for the promotion. They're the salesmen for nuclear industry. Agency funding projects to monitor online information about Fukushima, Japanese government, around-the-clock monitoring of blogs of nuclear power and Twitter accounts. Blogs of nuclear power. Guess what we do here, nuclear power? Guess what they're doing to us? They're monitoring us 24 hours a day. I know I'm monitored 24 hours a day. I know they've been here in the province. We've encountered them. I know that may sound like a conspiracy to some people. That's because you don't know. You don't understand how this works. I've been at this for 24 years. I have no illusions. I'm able to back it up with documentation. And I can't be compromised. I won't. My allegiance is to the planet, the species, and the people. We are at war. They're at war with you. You need to get to war with them. You need to give them no quarters. You never give them 2 inches of freedom. Never trust a single thing they ever say, ever, under any circumstances. You need to treat them as the mortal enemy of humanity and the 8 million species. And then you're actually the good guys. The good women, the good souls of our planet. UN committee chairman studying Fukushima radiation impact. We wouldn't expect to see health effects in children. It's interesting he would say that. Workers, even people at Ground Zero or anyone else. Oh, we got James calling in. Hang on, James, 1 second. Hang on, buddy. And people know James. James is the guy who's producing all the music that we play here. We have exclusive rights to it. I got him on record. He can never take that away.
I know. I just want to make sure the phone number works. And oh my God, I'm so glad I was able to connect with you. I've been so worried that I wasn't able to call.
Yeah, hang on 1 second, James. I got this screwed up here. I haven't even got the volume all the way up tonight. Caught me off guard. My whack whack. Okay, we're in business, buddy. Sorry about that.
No, it's fine. I'm just so happy to be able to connect because I was so worried that I couldn't call in or something.
Yeah.
But what you just said about how censored this all is, about how you're the public enemy number one in the crosshair.
Well, you are too.
Right? well, I mean, let them come after me. I mean, I don't care, but what
That's good.
the thing is, something really shifted, and I've been really at war with trying to understand it, but this is the thing. AI is always going to go with whatever the official narrative is. And it's just the default. It's going to go with. But when you see that information, you explain over and over again what's going on, it starts to change its mind. So they can't fully take over the whole narrative.
Gotcha.
Thing. I mean, in what you said, we all have to do this.
Yeah.
It's not just you. It's not just me or whatever. It's all of us that we all come collective. We all understand this is what they're afraid of.
They're terrified,
that
yeah.
army that you did it right. You're like, your job was to build as many people as possible to build this, power that we're not going to let this industry hoodwink us anymore.
That's
We're
right.
done with this.
Yes.
It's over with.
Yeah. It is so too, man.
And I just needed to call in about that. I just wanted to make sure I can voice that because
Yeah.
everything you're doing,
No, that's awesome, man.
it's not. Of course, you're being censored because YouTube can't make any money off you because they're making more money off the nuclear industry to suppress you. But they're not going to remove you completely, you know, at the same time because you're not breaking any rules.
No.
You know, BitChute's just shady as hell. YouTube is the internet. They're the infrastructure. They're the world. They're going to connect to everything. So
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
it's a little different.
It is, yeah. Go ahead,
Right.
yep. Yeah. Now we,
So I got something done that I think it's going to be a little crazy. I wanted to call and just kind of give a preview of this, that story about the orcas. It's all over the media. Orcas, for the first time, have been observed by these marine biologists, this stunning behavior because they are so intelligent, Dana. The orcas are so smart that they finally learned to kill great white sharks and only eat their liver. And, you know, we're not going to sit back here and think like, you know, where have we ever seen this before? You know, this kind of crazy behavior.
yeah.
It's this adaptation because nature.
Can you get your phone closer to your mouth for me?
Yeah, is this better? I'm sorry.
It's okay. We just want
Oh,
people
you
to
know
hear,
what? I
want
got
people to hear you better. Go ahead.
I got one signal, so I probably should let you go. But
Okay.
Yeah, let me let you go, but I just wanted to call in. Thank you so much, Dana.
No, well, that was great. You know, you're good. You're good, buddy. You were good. No, you were making great points there. We appreciate that, eh? That's people need to hear other people say it too. So it's unbelievably important that you know, they hear other voices, right? And so we appreciate that, my friend. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much, Dan. Thank you so much. Love you so much.
Love
Bye.
you, buddy. Yeah, thank you. That was James Lucet. I didn't mean to cut him off that time. He was doing great. I just wanted to, I noticed he wasn't peaking on the voice, on the meter I got there. I don't know what I got done with my phone here. Oh, you know what happened was I accidentally took a screen capture, and that's what was showing on my screen instead of the call. You ever have that happen to you out there, folks? James Lucet, the guy who called in there, is producing all the music. With this song we started off with tonight, for instance. That's his music. He's produced more anti-nuclear music than the entire planet combined. He has over 450 songs almost right now. And I think it's really important that other people hear that voice of somebody else saying, reinforcing the urgency, right? And he was making some great points, and I cut him off by trying to get him to go a little bit louder. That happens. That's unfortunate, but anyway, that was a great call. Thanks, James. And he's been here a long time, folks, and he's been an incredible supporter of this message. Just incredible, unbelievable, and taken it to the point now where he's elevated. He's there's a word for it. Where he's transcended, and now he's producing music, anti-nuclear music, and like my favorites is just unbelievable. I'm literally just thrilled to hear the songs. They pick me up all the time. But he's transcended. He found a niche, and then he worked hard. Every song is very difficult, folks. He's worked incredibly hard to produce the music because music is the perfect weapon. That's what he's got. He's got the perfect weapon, and he's mastering it. But he can only get better because of technology. And he's got the technology, he's got the system in order to even take it to a different level again. And it takes an enormous amount of time, energy, and commitment. And if anybody knows anything about learning software and learning how to use new systems, and there's always this new software, and he's always deviling into stuff like that. That stuff is incredibly frustrating, okay? And so he does, I don't know if he realizes it or not, but he's gone to war. As far as the nuclear industry is concerned, he has gone to war against them. And you can see the censorship on his site. Well, 100%, folks. It's 100% censorship. And he's very conservative. It's very unusual for him to say anything blatant. And he's not a bastard like me. Let's put it that way. I'm a bastard sometimes. Right? I don't hold much back. I don't hold anything back, actually. When I get cranky, I can really put it out there. Not to be used for military purposes. So United Nations, IAEA, United Nations has UNSCLEAR and IRPA and the IPRC and IAEA, the radiation protection agencies. And they've set the standards for your schools, for your hospitals, for your universities. They're the people who's in charge of how big of a dose it takes to kill your loved ones when you take them to the hospital with cancer. They're the ones who ultimately set up all the radiation and the chemo radiation therapies that have never cured anybody. It's a guaranteed death sentence for their organs and by proxy them. And so they don't have anything to do, they say, with the nuclear, the military purposes for nuclear. That's regulated by the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, which is appointed by administrations. And they'll get a job with the United Nations after that administration goes. They'll get invited into UN, and UN, IAEA, like the third biggest donor is Japan, for instance. Most likely it's the biggest donor, but officially it's the third biggest donor. And we've seen Rafael Grossi go there a few days before the so-called the propaganda water release from Japan in 2023, in August 24. They showed up a few days before that and picked up a $19 million check. Then they jetted over to South Korea, where there was people protesting tritium, not even tritium-3H. And they gave a speech there it was despicable, boy, what the UN had done there. Its first release, treated water, wastewater on top of that, not even... TEPCO has worked vigilantly to shut out close scrutiny of the ravaged plant's conditions. First release treated. There is no, you can't treat water from a nuclear meltdown. It doesn't work that way. Japan Times column is the public, possibly worldwide, sickens over time. The truth will come out about Fukushima. So calling it wastewater is just the most dishonest thing you could ever do. How can you look at something from this? You pour water over that. How do you call that wastewater? That's fuel pellets, fuel particulates are in it, splitting atoms. You can't filter it. If you put it in a tank, it sinks to the bottom of the tank, it gathers up, and then you have a chain reaction, burn a hole through the tank, you have to get off the site. They're not putting anything in the tanks. The tanks are show and tell, to trick you and deceive you and coerce you, manipulate you, and make you complacent. And if you go to my playlist and look for the tanks, I'll provide you all the documentation you could ever hope for, and you can beat them in court with the documentation I provide. Like, officially, nothing got out of this. But unofficially, everything got out. Officially, that never happened at all. Officially, got all the fuel out of that building, including the fuel pools, and they got all the fuel out of that building, including the fuel pool. That's the official story. Which are 150 feet above those stumps of nuclear meltdowns. Our analyst shows that radionuclide activity concentrations in the seawater fish samples around the area are far below levels that would cause concerns for human health or the marine ecosystem, IAEA stated. They never even went there to 2023. We may not be able to live in Japan someday, 2011. Oh no, nothing got out, Dana. Like, suggesting that nothing got into the ocean. Let me show you some of my research expeditions. from Canada to Alaska. I've done for 6 years, 4 to 5 months a year on the Pacific Ocean. The species to your left are exterminated. So I'm going to be trying to get back to this, Dana, with all the equipment that I just ordered in. And my diet is going to change and everything else. I remember I got hurt as a commercial diver when I was young, and that took me out. I was out there for 128 days because we couldn't get anybody to replace me. And I got seriously hurt. So many years later, Fukushima happened, and I went out on the ocean to do research expeditions. I went from Vancouver, British Columbia to Alaska. There's 27,000 islands, and this is just a short version I show all the time. The species to your left are now exterminated. I went back for 5 more years to see if the species to the left recovered, and the species didn't recover. Cesium remains dispersed throughout the water column from the surface to the ocean floor, 2012 Reuters. Your species to the left are actually gone. And so what they'd done was we had one acknowledgement where they come out and suggested that all the species had cancer, and the cancers were jumping from one species to another species like a virus. So the 700 algae, the 480 species of worms that you don't see, the 5,500 invertebrates without the backbones you don't see because they're living in algae, all the clams, the mussels, the little necks, the manillas, the oysters, the scallops, the gooey ducks, the razorbacks, the periwinkles, the whelks, all the shellfish are snuffed out. The 84 species of sponges are snuffed out. The 78 species, and they all come in different vibrant colors of each species. The 78 species or so of starfish are all exterminated. I used to dive in that environment. I know all these species. I worked in that environment for thousands and thousands and thousands of hours. I'm very aware of all these species. As a commercial diver, that was my playground every day for 6 hours. And they were there in 2011, and just after Fukushima, they started disappearing within a year. They were almost all gone. So I went back for 6 more years, right, to do the research expeditions for 5 more years on top of the first year to see if the species to your left recovered. They didn't. So they're permanently gone. And the reason that makes this so unique, so a glass of that water would have 1 billion creatures. And there'd be 75 to 100 million phytoplankton in that glass. One glass of water, right? Just a single glass of water. Would have 75 to 100 million phytoplankton and 900 million other creatures. That was the eggs and larvae and the sperm of the species to your left and the other species that are in the ocean. And so when you see crystal clear water in the summertime, it's because it's sterilized. Fukushima had broken the food chain. We broke the food chain. And pretending we didn't break the food chain is not a solution. And censoring people, which there's a very long history of it, 12 million yen to censor Twitter being spent by the city starting to burn disaster debris. So they actually they burnt billions of pounds of radioactive debris. They ground it up, they shipped it all over the country, and they burned it in the incinerators. In Tokyo incinerators, in just one of the incinerators, they have a lot of different ones there, and just because there's 36 million people. In just one of the incinerators, they had there was over 3 people had heart attacks and had to be rushed to the hospital because of the radioactive emissions from the incinerator gave them heart attacks. JFK got in the way. See, James got another song here. We're going to head over there in about 2 minutes, 3 minutes. And we don't know what the winds are in Japan. I don't know. But I intend to find out. And it's going to take a week or two for me to, or who knows how long. But I'm going to have a folder and I'm going to start plugging away. If I find the evidence, then I'm going to bring it to you. You know me. You know what I'm saying is true. And you know I'll do what I'll do because I said I'll do it. That means it'll get done. And you know that I'm here to go to war for you and your friends and your families and your loved ones, your communities and your planet. And I hope one day you'll join me. And then you'll remember what it's like to be alive again. Because every time we do this, all day long, I know I'm alive. Because the industry is so evil, I'm happy to have another day on the planet. But the incredible censorship on me has made me realize that I need to fight back, and that's how it's always been with me. And these pivotal moments where you can sink into a massive depression, or you can rise up above it and use it as a tool to work even harder. And so that's the path I have chosen. And I know it's not going to be an easy path, but it's going to be a wonderful path. Eat even healthier. I'll be... And I know that, that red light therapy, for instance, using the sauna 5 or 6 days a week I'm expecting 30 minutes a day minimum. That'll help me sweat things out. And the red light therapy, which is, I got the really nice lights. I like to have another one, but it's a really nice one, full body lights. That stuff is amazing for you and uplifts you. And then the grounding, right? I got the cheapest one I can get because I was kind of maxed out. But it's a start. That's a great start there, right? But the other equipment will be, I can only get better by doing that. I can only be more useful to this planet by doing that. And so I am now officially, next week I'll be set up. And I will do it every day. And I will benefit from it, and so will this planet, hopefully. All right, looks like let's look at the poll one more time. Is the nuclear power industry radioactive fallout a billion-year curse on humanity and 8 million species? Well, yeah, Dana, of course it is. Duh, Dana. I know what you're saying. Come on, man, give me a break. I'm trying to be reasonable here. I'm going to close the poll down in a few minutes. James got a 3-minute song here. He's got 461 videos, folks. That's the song we started off with tonight, 1957. And he's got the best picture you can find of me on the internet on his page there, bless his heart. This is an amazing song. He just posted a little over a day ago. And he just posted this one tonight, so we're going to watch this one now. Adaptations Born from Collapse. And usually under these stories are going to be a link to his motivation. Not always, but he doesn't have a lot of problem finding motivation because he understands the story so well. And we're looking forward to it. I love it. And he does all the graphic, creates all the music and the videos and everything like that. It's an enormous amount of work. We'll catch everybody on the next show, hopefully tomorrow night. That's the wrong one. Have a great night. Hugs for everybody. See you on the next show. Take care.
In March 2011, containment at Fukushima failed. Not briefly, not explosively, but continuously. For over 14 years, the release has met the current not in surges, but in diffusion. Radioactive elements merge with saline pathways, drifting on thermal plumes, crossing hemispheres. Largely undetected. The ocean is not a passive recipient. It is a fluid memory system. Marine chemistry responded not with rejection, but with absorption. Chelation patterns formed in places they had never formed before. Ion channels that once closed now remain open. Sediment turnover slowed, redox gradient shifted, ligand availability diverged from baseline. The food chain did not simply collapse, it warped. Species did not vanish overnight. They lost orientation. Growth cycles stretched, reproductive pulses faltered, larval development went askew. Migration pathways fractured, spawning grounds fell silent. Some populations returned, others have not. What plankton absorb, anchovies amplify. What anchovies carry, apex predators inherit. But what of behavior, of cognition, of navigational instinct? We still don't know. The feedback loop is not merely biological, it is neurological. Marine organisms respond to signal, to electrical field, to memory encoded in chemistry. Those signals have shifted. Now in the Gulf of California, a pod of orcas has changed its method. They target juvenile great white sharks, approach from below, rotate the body, induce paralysis. Then they remove one organ. Not flesh, not muscle. The liver. Energy dense, rich in fat, highly specific. This is not hunger, it is precision. Learned, passed on, normalized. Great whites once held dominance. Now, they are resource. The ocean does not retaliate, it reassesses function. The chemistry has altered, the medium has changed, and the result is no longer in our hands. The question is not, will the great white survive? The question is, what remains when they don't?
That was brilliant, actually, folks. I love it. And the liver is huge in some of these sharks. Could weigh several hundred pounds. I'm going to play one of James's other songs for the closer at night. Nuclear exceptionalism. It's an anti-nuclear song. Take care.
They said it was clean, too cheap to meter. Built the dome, then cooked the beaker. Said the rod was safe as sealed in drums, but left them leaking out of Idaho slums. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear's not dumb. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear is fun. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear has won. Hallelujah, nuclear exceptionalism is done. They chase the sun, all fusion proud. Ignore the barrels stacked in clouds. Promise stars in every socket, while curium settled in the market. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear's not dumb. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear is fun. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear has won. Hallelujah, nuclear exceptionalism is done. Chart is clean, while whales rolled up inside the submarine. Blame the algae, blame the rain, but never trace the gamma chain. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear's not dumb. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear is fun. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear has won. Hallelujah, nuclear exceptionalism is done. Now the rods are rusting, the record spins. Mama warned them, too many sins. Keep your son, keep your lab coat pride, till you fix the waste you tried to hide.